PMI-ACP Masterclass. Are you a PMP and wondering, what do I do next? Or perhaps you're wondering, how do I get into this world of the ACP? You might be certified in other certifications, but perhaps you're looking for a course. This is your opportunity to join a great Agile certified practitioner training program that is blended. The beauty of blended learning means you can study on your own terms, at your own pace, but you also get to speak with a live instructor during the kickoff meeting, which we call ACP exam immersion. And the cool thing is, you can schedule that with me, one of your instructors. Meet the team. This is a course that is run by my buddy Roy Schilling, who is a seasoned Agile coach. He has over 30 years of IT experience, and you'll see him in the videos. Also, I have over 20 years of experience in the world of project management. 10 plus of those have been in the world of Agile, and I have vast experience in different facets of project management. For those of you who are project managers in a predictive world, not able to bridge the gap between these Agile terms and what you do today, well, I'm your poster child for how to be Agile in thought. It took a while for me to climb that Agile trajectory, even after I got certified. So all the pits and the valleys, I understand them. I've been there. I dug myself out of the pit with my buddy Roy. So you will be in a training program that is pragmatic, that is fun and informative. Here's the plan. We will tackle the 7 PMI ACP exam domains with me coming alongside you every step of the way, and the videos on the learning management system will guide your understanding. These videos are not just your average boring video. No, these were filmed in front of a live audience online. It's engaging, it's fun, it's fast paced, and it's effective. The way the modules are structured is as follows: Agile principles and mindset, value driven delivery, stakeholder engagement, team performance for Agile teams, adaptive planning in Agile, problem detection and resolution, and continuous improvement. And by the time we're done, at the end of those 7 modules, we have a final mock exam for you to take. We also have books and other content that we will be providing along the way. The study aids are unbelievable. We give you a book that is extremely robust. We give you a course handout, and you have access to over 50 hours of training and coaching. You also have access to watch videos of those who are now ACP certified, giving you lessons learned. We also introduced the idea of weekly touch points to go over 50 questions of a multiple choice nature, and you can ask for additional training, coaching, and help when you are stuck. So every step of the way, you have assistance, you have guidance. All throughout the program, you'll see questions like this pop up on the screen, and you'll see my buddy Roy and I ask the team, the students going through the training, what they think the answers are. And you can also participate by guessing or thinking about the answer, and then the answer will eventually be revealed. This is a course you don't want to miss. This can be accessed at agileprinciple.com, so don't miss a beat. Go on right now, and we look forward to seeing you in the training. But before you go today, let's jump into a live situation in one of our courses in Domain 1. My buddy Roy and I have a lot to say. Welcome back. We're here on our PMI-ACP Masterclass, and we're moving into Domain 1, Agile Principles and Mindset. Any overarching thoughts, Roy, regarding this one?
This is the core to not just the exam, but more importantly to Agile overall. Values and principles, how we think about doing work, far more important than the practices. The practices are so easy. The Scrum guide is what, 10, 12 pages, something like that. If you can't remember 10 or 12 pages, you've got bigger challenges, right? It's the core, the values, how we think about work. That is what will get you across all of the practices and improve more of an Agile mindset, even if you're doing waterfall, right? So this is the area that you really need to focus on, and it'll help you with the exam as well.
All right, Roy. Well, let's jump in. I like this little quote put together. The great Mike Cohn has been so helpful in putting stuff together, and he put together like 100 different quotes, which we're going to be seeing all through
Planning is everything, plans are nothing. Just think about that. In the world of Agile, we're not holding on to our plan. It must be done. No, it must. No one's doing that, are they, Roy?
Not at all. It's much more important to do what's important, what's valuable, not just what's in a plan.
Absolutely. So we're going to talk about the Agile Manifesto values and principles eventually, but let's take a look at domain one and what it says. It says, explore, embrace, and apply Agile principles and mindset within the context of the project team and organization. As a practitioner, I cannot help but look at the word explore and embrace as being a continuous thing. It's not something that you're going to stop, is it?
Absolutely. It's that concept of continuous learning, experimentation, fail early. That's what they're really embracing as part of this.
Okay, so let's take a look at the number of tasks in this domain. We're not going to read this to you. We'll encourage you to download the Agile Certified Practitioner content outline, where all of this stuff is, the PMI-ACP content outline. So we're going to be going through all 9 tasks, but at a very high level, as Roy said, practices, that's not the hard part. The part that challenges a lot of people is understanding what the manifesto means. So Roy, you want to tell us, talk to us about what this value array really means to us?
Yeah, so what we're trying to encourage is a mental shift away from traditional mindset. And traditional mindset is typically process, checklist, to-do lists, lots of documentation, or at least the documentation is a considerable part of the deliveries, following a plan, those kinds of things. And that's the traditional approach. And that works fine on environments where you can be predictive. You can do those things. So we're not saying that stuff in the traditional space is bad. What we're saying is it works fine for traditional. What we prefer that you start doing is shifting toward the agile mindset, where you're thinking about the way that we're doing things rather than the processes and the steps to get there, right? The how we're thinking about things. That's the important part. So let's just very quickly go through these to really get these into your heads. If you remember the manifesto and truly internalize the values and principles, taking the test is going to be a lot easier. And more importantly, practicing, right? When you're actually doing Agile, it's going to make more sense to you, right? Why we do certain things. So the first one is individuals and interactions over processes and tools. Now, again, processes and tools are important to us, but the people doing the work, how we relate with each other, how do we interact with each other, the teams that we build, that's more important, because great people and great collaboration are going to find ways past processes and tools, right? The processes and tools on the right are there to support the stuff on the left, right? That's what we're trying to get to, right? Now, the next one is working product over comprehensive documentation. Now, in the manifesto, it technically says working software, but that's because it's the Agile manifesto for software development. Now, we changed that because it's not just about software, right? So it's working product, anything that you're working on, and products, services, whatever, right? It's all basically the same way, same mindset that we would make use of. Now, the working product is more important than the comprehensive documentation. Again, not that documentation is not important. Of course it is, right? Especially if you're in a regulated environment. If you don't do documentation, you could get in serious trouble, right? That's not what we're saying here. What we're saying is shift the focus, shift the mindset. Doing documentation is not nearly as important as producing the product for your customers. If we're focusing on customers, they likely don't care very much, often anyway, about the documentation. They care about getting their product, right? That's what we're looking for. Now, a really interesting thing that happened to me recently, I just want to share this story very quickly. I was working with a team, and the person that was in charge of this team that was running this project said, I don't know what we're going to build. I don't know what we're going to do until I receive the documentation from the vendor. And I literally almost had a heart attack from that one. It's like, the documentation is not going to prove anything. The documentation is only supportive. It's the product. Let's do something. Let's build something and experiment. Let's see what happens. And then we'll tweak the documentation along the way. So don't rely so heavily on the documentation. And a lot of people coming from the traditional approaches, that feels really uncomfortable because that documentation gives you that feeling of control, but it's an illusion. Right? That control is an illusion. As soon as you start implementing, that documentation may no longer be valid. Right? So documentation is important for organizational memory. And for regulatory needs, the working product is more important. The next one, customer collaboration over contract negotiation. Now, contracts take many forms, of course, but primarily here we're talking about the requirements, right? A BRD, something like that. So what we're saying here is just because you've received a list of all the requirements they want doesn't mean it's right, right? So we want to focus on talking with our customers, helping them understand what they're asking for, helping us understand what they're asking for. And together, through that significant collaboration activity, we're going to build a better product. Our focus is not to meet the on time, on budget, all scope. That's important. That is not the primary focus. What is important is a happy customer, right? And often it means doing something they didn't ask for, or changing directions to build them something that's truly valuable, rather than just what they thought they needed at the beginning of a project. So it's along the way, we make changes, we allow it to happen by talking, right? Responding to change over following a plan is a big one, especially for more traditional minded folks. Planning is important, of course. We do need to have a plan, but following it blindly and saying, well, a whole bunch of things have changed, so let's see what we can do to get back on plan. Or probably a more appropriate thing to do is change the plan. The plan's no longer valid because you're building something different. It's no longer the same plan. So that's what we do in Agile. We focus on the individuals, delivering product, talking with your customers, and responding to the changes that happen, because guess what? Changes are going to happen. All right, back to you, Phil.
Great stuff, Roy. Thank you very much. And I know our friends on this call, they have these values hopefully fresh in their minds, because they are going to be receiving a little quiz in the next few minutes. So Roy, let's jump into the 12 principles in the same manner, at a really high level. I know number 1 is your favorite, and number 12. I know that much. You want to talk about other favorites of yours and those two?
Yeah, and to your point, Phil, we're not going to go through all of these. Please do read them, right? They are so important, whether you're doing Agile or Waterfall or whatever. These are really valuable principles to follow, right? So I'm not going to go through a lot of them. I do want to indicate, just a reminder, number 1, highest priority is satisfy your customer. That should be obvious, right? If we're not satisfying our customers, guess what? We're not doing our jobs, and you won't have customers for long. The next one I want to talk about very quickly is principle number 5. Now, principle number 5 is the core to how we build teams and how we build relationships with our teams. This is where we build projects around motivated individuals, give them an environment and support they need, and trust them to get the job done. There's a lot in that one, right? So we want to hire motivated adults that will do their job and don't need to be driven to do their job. Whether it's not mediocrity. We hire great people because that's how we get work done. Remember, value number 1, individuals and interactions. Individuals and interactions not going to be so great if we don't hire great people, right? So it starts with that. We also need to build an environment of trust. So if management can trust the team, they don't need to drive them, they don't need to tell them what to do. The team can be self-empowered, self-managing, decentralized decision-making. There's a lot that's packed into this principle. So this is an important one for an organization to remember. Excuse me. All right, so another one I want to talk about very quickly is number 7. Principle number 7 is a big one because traditional project managers like to track progress a certain way. My favorite metric, Phil, you remember my favorite metric, tracking progress? Do you remember what that is?
Burn up, burn down velocity.
There you go. Those are the ones from an Agile perspective. In Waterfall, it's % complete.
Oh, dear.
Oh, I hate %. I don't know how you feel about it. I hate % complete. So the reason is that it's not a very accurate measure. It's often how you feel and not necessarily the reality of what's actually being done. I recently I was working with a team, and it was a vendor that was a Waterfall vendor, although they said they were Agile. They're not Agile, right? They're just not. And, you know, they were tracking, they were giving this 15-page status report every week. It's like, there's none of this is necessary. And I said, so you're tracking % complete. That's just kind of how you feel. It's not a real number. It doesn't represent. And the person that was running the project said, well, you know, we are using Microsoft Project, so it's not exactly just how we feel. It's like, oh, yeah, they don't really get it. This is not an Agile organization. First, they wouldn't be using Microsoft Project. They wouldn't be using % complete, and they never would rely on the tool, right? Never rely on the tool. So primary measure progress is not % complete. Measure progress is based on actually getting things done. And I'm not talking about documentation and phases. I'm talking about actual working product. Build something and that is done. Talk about building something, it's not done, right? All you've done is accomplish a task, and that is not actually something that the customers care about, right? Now, just real quick on principle number 12, as Phil, as you mentioned, that is my second favorite principle. This is about continuous improvement. This is something I always say, even if you're doing waterfall, fantastic, start doing this. So it's similar to a lessons learned session that we're trying to find ways of improving, but don't wait till the end of a project, do it throughout. So we're always looking to improve. It's based on something that came from manufacturing, Toyota production system, all the way back in the 40s, something called Kaizen, which is a philosophy, a very deep-rooted philosophy in always improving. So core to any of the Agile processes, and I would say that should be core to anything that we do, organizationally, culturally, everything. We should be focusing on Kaizen. Phil, any others that you'd like to cover?
That is great. Those are my favorites. Your favorites are becoming my favorites. The one I find humorous is number 10, because it's a very difficult way of saying something that's meant to be simplifying things for you. So simplicity, the art of maximizing the amount of work not done. Because I've had students think it meant maximize the amount of work you do, just do busy work. No, it's the opposite.
Yep.
Do you have a simpler way of saying this, Roy?
Don't do stuff you don't have to do. How about that?
That's easy.
Yeah, just don't do it. Right?
Oh dear, that was so funny. Okay, now before we go into the very first task, we're going to take a look at one of Roy's signature questions, which I think this question has been reverse engineered. Roy, you might recognize it somewhat. Let's take a look at the question. You work for a Fortune 500 firm in Beirut. Over the past 15 years, you have been the lead engineer using predominantly predictive project management approaches. Recently, the CEO announced a reorganization and a new agile approach to planning using lightweight, low-tech, high-touch philosophies. You have been appointed as the project team lead. What will the result of this reorganization be? Now, this question is not to test you, it's to call your attention to PMI's signature way of asking stuff, right? So I found that the questions Roy writes, they're kind of hard sometimes to even know that you're 50% of the way there, you know? So this question is really to call your attention to the number of lines of a question you could get. Typically, they're shorter than this. This is a little bit longer than the normal, but I want you to begin thinking about the possibility of long questions. And secondly, I want you to go ahead and just play with it. And here is your poll. Let's relaunch it. All right, 3, 2, 1. All right, let's go ahead and end the poll, and we will share our results. So Roy, let us begin to use the process of elimination to get rid of the red herring. So me in the predictive world, like you said, I would immediately jump at B, because I'd say, yeah, fully defined schedule and budget. But we know that's not the way we roll in the world of Agile, is it?
Nah, it really isn't. We have a high level understanding of it, and we may define some dates that are deliveries, but it's not going to include everything, right? We're still guessing at this point.
Yeah, because it says a new Agile approach to planning using lightweight, low tech, and high touch. So it's not going to be a fully defined schedule and budget. Now, each sprint, we know that we have a fixed time box, but that's different, isn't it?
It is. I mean, you think about it this way. Typically, you're also saying in item B that also the scope needs to be fully defined so that you can get a fully defined schedule and budget.
That's true.
In an Agile environment, we can't define all of the scope because we recognize we don't know it. And as a result, you can't possibly have a fully defined schedule and a fully defined budget. It is an idea, right? This is what we're targeting. It should be pretty close to this, but you will adjust along the way as necessary, right?
Exactly. It's never fully defined in the world of Agile, ever.
And Phil, is it ever really defined in waterfall? Is it
true? That's true. That's a good way of looking at it. All right, let's take a look at A. Focuses on the plan documents. So this is individuals and interactions. What's this one? Working product over comprehensive
I
documentation.
would go with that one. Yeah, absolutely.
Get rid of it.
Definitely not that. Documentation's important, but that's not really part of the planning process.
Okay, so we're left with C and D. Again, we're left with the word fully defined. So when we talk about fully defined product features, early, that's a double whammy. Because this is talking about fully defined in scope. What do you have to say about that, Roy?
Yeah, so we will get to a point where we can define those features, but not at the beginning, because again, so here's the big thing to keep in your heads when you're going through this. Traditional project management is by its nature predictive, meaning you can predict by building a good plan at the beginning, you can predict every step along the way and have a successful output and outcome at the end. Agile is based on an adaptive approach, and in adaptive, there is uncertainty at the beginning of the project. And I know we're going to get into uncertainty relatively soon, right? So with more uncertainty, it's not possible to define everything up front because it's not certain, right? So it's an adaptive approach. Can't define everything up front because you just don't know enough. So we go approach it in a different way, don't we?
Absolutely, Roy. So that has to go. And the answer is results and plans that encourage change and that are easily changed. Why? Agile is a change-based approach, adaptive, not prescriptive. So we have a number of these questions. This is one of Roy's signature questions that we've added some PMI babble to. But you're going to encounter a lot of these as we go through. At this point, we're going to stop this particular section and ask you if you have any questions.
Well, my friends, you have been a great audience staying thus far. You joined my buddy Roy and I in one of the modules out of many. Remember, we've just taken a look at the Agile principles, but we also have the mindset pieces. And in each of these domains, we don't just stay at the surface, we go pretty deep. So, in addition to what you just learned from my buddy Roy and I, we will be going deeper in domain one, agile principles and mindset, into these tasks, covering them one by one. And that is what a lot of this course is based on. We cover each task, breaking it apart, looking at what's under the hood, giving you a little bit more insights into the task. There are a number of slides that you will have access to that will be sent to you, and it has very engaging and helpful imagery to break down the content and illustrate what exactly is being discussed. So, those of you who got certified 2020, 2021, 22, 23, 24, and you're wondering, what do I do next? You know, I'm a PMP or I'm a CAPM or I'm a PMI-PBA. Well, the next logical step will be to go on down to agileprinciple.com and join me and my buddy Roy in the classroom, and also schedule your kickoff for a live session where I will be guiding you through the milestones and the overarching ideas and theories behind this exam. We call it the PMI-ACP immersion, and it's a signature part of this course. But the really cool thing about it is you can schedule that whenever you have the availability. It's a 1 hour session with me in a live classroom environment via Zoom, and you will have all the time that we need to break down the backbone for the ACP exam. Now, you got to remember that the ACP is a valuable exam. Not only does it sensitize you to the manifesto, values, and principles, but we also go deeper into a smattering of topics, and we get our hands and feet really wet with the ideas of the Agile Practice Guide For example, we dismantle the concept of MVP minus, I almost said minus, versus PSI versus MMF and MMP. These are terminologies that help you in the business world. We also uncover how to approach risk in an agile environment. And we give you a very compelling reason why certain things are done the way they are. We break down concepts that are all throughout the Agile Practice Guide: decision spectrums, how you work collaboratively as a team, the concept of forecasting, the concept of velocity, and so on and so forth. Always breaking down the myths until you get done with the entire program. So I encourage you, join right now, going down to agileprinciple.com, come aboard, and let's begin working on our kickoff session, a live session where you will be put on the right path. And week by week after that, I will be holding you accountable. Not only will I hold you accountable, as there is availability, I will also invite you to live sessions where I ask you how your study is progressing, and I allow you sit in on additional agile sessions as there is availability. So there's so much hidden value in this course. You will also be able to listen to the lessons learned from people who have gone before you in the training, and I'm talking about very robust lessons learned. 1 hour long, 30 minutes long, from different students who have passed the exam. And they help you understand what they did to get to success. So again, don't miss a beat. Join my buddy Roy and I, and we look forward to seeing you in the classroom. Thank you once again. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments below. You can also email info@praizion.com. That's info at praizion.com. All the very best. I'll see you in the classroom.